Great. Today, I'm talking to Pravin Shekar, I hope I pronounce it right, founder of Pravin Shekar, the Outlier Marketer. Pravin is an author of 8 books and an expert on marketing, especially outlier marketing. I'd love to hear more about that later, what that exactly means. I think marketing in your own unique style, if I understand it correct. So standing out from the crowd. And the interesting part is I was recommended to talk to you by Carrie Phipps, with whom I spoke about talking to strangers. And I've had an amazing talk with her actually during the interview, but also before and after we talked more. And she told me about you, and I was very impressed by your style and your energy, by the research that I've done into your material. And I think it's going to be exciting to talk to you today. So I'm grateful for Carrie to recommend it, and I'm obviously grateful for you to making the time. So that's great. Although you're an expert on marketing, I don't only want to talk to you about marketing and outlier marketing as such, but I'd also love to pick your brain on being your unique self.
Yeah. And
on putting yourself out there for the world to see. So we have a couple of topics to cover. Thanks so much. And I'm happy to be with you. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure, Julius. Always glad to connect with a stranger, because after the conversation, we cease to be strangers.
Correct.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me start off by asking you this. I think being an outlier means being a person who is detached and away from the main system, or being a person who is different from other members of a particular group or a set. Why would you say, Pravin, that it's important to be different?
Right.
Or is it important? Maybe that's the first question.
Oh, there's absolutely no way anybody can survive without getting noticed. Whether you want a good partner, a good job, a career, we are always selling, even without saying a word. And it is always better for somebody to approach you rather than you trying to go ahead and sell. Now, how do you make that approach possible? Only by standing on a stool, making yourself tall, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So it has become more so in the last couple of years, when there's just so much noise everywhere. Everybody claims to be an expert in something else, Julius, but what are you an expert in? And there need be no shame in telling people that, hey, this is who I am, this is what I am for. And the more empathetic you are about it, you build. The word personal brand is commoditized. I'm just talking about find you, be you, and let the world know who you are.
Yeah.
And just by doing that, you are going to be different.
Yeah. So automatically, by being your unique self, you are by definition different. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and you have to strive to be different.
Yeah.
And in marketing terms, and I'm not going to get into too much jargon, Julius, that is a point of parity and a point of differentiation. Parity is, hey, both of us are on a Zoom call, so at least waist up, we are decently dressed, we are presentable. That's the point of parity. Yeah. But when we look at you and we look at me, each one is different. Yeah. Obviously, my mustache is part of my brand. It's a shameless part of me. Yeah. That's my point of differentiation, and that becomes the first point of candid conversation that you're going to have with anybody you need to know.
Yeah.
And what is that unique characteristic of yours that is going to ensure that people talk about you, know about you, and there need be no shame in that.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned shame a couple of times. Do you think that people are generally hesitant to put themselves out there and they're hiding parts of themselves?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I live in India, and I can pretty much speak for a slightly wider, the subcontinent and the Asian part, that we don't like to talk about ourselves. We do not like to toot our own horn. It is, at least till about 10 years ago, there was a stigma associated with talking about yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So it is what I call the cultural crush that does not allow you to break the cocoon and be yourself. So you comply. You are a part of a group. You want to be part of the group, yet you want to be identified and get the promotion and get the raise and all that. How is that possible?
Yeah, you have to be unique.
Against all logic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to demonstrate that uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about this because how has your journey been in this regard? I imagine, as you already said, actually, that especially in Indian society, for instance, conformity is expected and it's actually rewarded. And you clearly stand out and you put yourself out there. So you do things differently than the majority, I would say. And watching some of your older videos, this appeared to be less explicit back then. So I think you've also developed and you've realized that, hey, this is bringing me something. It's adding to the experience. So can you share, please, some of your personal journey towards finding your unique style of being and kind of expressing and putting yourself out there in the world to see? Could you share some of that journey in the context of it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll give a short answer first and then talk
Sure.
a little bit more in detail. The short
Yeah.
answer is learn the rules, master the rules, break the rules, and make up your own rules.
Yeah.
So yes, being in India, I had to be a part of the conformity environment. I had to conform to keep the parents and the relations happy,
Yeah.
to keep the role models happy. And I'm going to touch upon role model a bit later and why I do not believe in that single role model. However, when you are in a culture, when you have to conform for years, it takes that much time to break out of it, Julius.
Yes, sure.
And break out of it, we would need to. So therefore, you try to play at the edges of the conform system.
Yeah.
So that, hey, I'm a rebel, but I'm not too much of a rebel to go out of it. So if this is the framework, I will be right at the edge of the framework, but still coming back to the center of conformity now and then, until suddenly you realize that that is not enough. And there are a few brave hearts who take the step on their own. And there are a few like me who have mentors and friends who pull you up and make sure that you stand for who you are. So when you look at my old style versus now, obviously there is a significant change because there is a search phase when you try to find out who I am, what am I for, how do I communicate it, which I call the beginning phase to the finding yourself phase to the being yourself phase.
The being,
across,
as in the small being, do I hear that correct? Being,
yes, be yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean the first phase, the being phase. Yes. Yeah.
Which is the beginning phase is generally filled with a lot of confusion, self-doubt, imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Hey, should I not? Should I even put my hand up? If I put my hand up, am I putting my hand up like this? Or am I putting it up like that?
Yes.
So Julius, and that is across cultures, that you will always have these 1-2 people right up front who are volunteers who jump into everything.
Yeah.
They are followed by the next set who are confident in that leader to go right ahead. And then you have the large mass that's happy in the conformity. So anybody who becomes an outlier is either dragged back into conformity or shunned out.
Yes. So you said you spent some time at the edges, right? And I imagine testing, crossing the edges and seeing how people respond to that. How was that process for you?
Oh, it was recursive and repetitive, but rewarding. Rewarding because you have to train the people around you to realize that a metamorphosis is happening, that you are looking at breaking that cocoon.
Yes.
For some, with the culture and the environment and the people around, it becomes faster. But for some, it is slow, and that's absolutely fine. You have to be comfortable with who you are to communicate who you are.
Yes.
So to that extent, I will equate it to marketing, that when you don't know what you are selling, how can you communicate it? How can the other person understand it and do what needs to be done?
Yes. So you said training the people around you, that you're going through this metamorphosis. How does that process happen? Because I can imagine, for instance, especially with family and perhaps parents and traditional societal rules and expectations, that can cause quite a bit of conflict and friction.
Find the key influencer in your circle, and the circle could be different. For me, it was family, it was friends, and in family, it was the extended family that included uncles and cousins as well. In friends, you had juniors and seniors, and you have to find the influencers who believe in you. So my uncle believed in what I wanted to do. A couple of my close friends believed in what I wanted to do and helped me stay on the edge until I could discover myself.
Yeah.
And they were there batting in my circle for me, saying, hey, it's okay. Let him lose. Let him try. Let him go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Conformity, anybody can fall into conformity at any point in time.
Yeah.
So my first thing was I was lucky enough to find these influencers within my family and friends, and then later on in my college and business as well. Because Julius, when I try to be different and I am successful, even partly successful, there'll be a whole lot of people trying to copy, and suddenly it becomes a commodity. What you thought was a differentiation ceases to be a differentiation 6 months from now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, because people look at the individuals who dare to be brave and step out, and then once someone has done, they also make the leap. Yeah, it's a catalyst for change. So what you said is you identify these influences and you kind of make them an ambassador for you. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that builds the base and the confidence for you to push through. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like riding a bicycle. You're not going to get it the first time. You're not going to get it the first week, but you need somebody to run behind you to hold in case you're going to fall off.
Yes. Yes. Who has your back when things go wrong. Yeah.
Yes. And they will go wrong. When you're trying to be different, when you're trying to be you, it may seem as if the whole world is against you.
Yeah. Did you have those experiences on your journey?
Without a doubt. When you're talking about conformity, Julius, you're talking about family, the society, the area that you are in, the office that you're working in, the clients that you work with. Everybody wants conformity.
Yeah.
You will need to find the influencers and make these small wins for yourself, not for the world.
Yeah.
For me to see, hey, this is who I am, and I'm happy to stand for who I am.
Yeah.
And there will be losses galore, but when you work on it in an agile format, it falls in place. I call it the connecting the dots part of it.
An agile format. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
So coming from the world of research, I would segment it slightly differently. That the two main parts is once you decide to figure out who you are as the finding you, and then you're the being you.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of finding you, Julius, one is a segment or a persona that I call the pacifist. It's okay, whatever comes my way, I'm happy to take it up, which is fine. I'm not saying one is good or better than the other. I'm just saying this is my analysis.
Yeah.
Second comes the fluttering butterfly. Hey, today I am this, tomorrow something else is coming, I'm that. The day after tomorrow, I'm something else. So for example, somebody would have been a big data guy, then suddenly becomes an artificial intelligence, and tomorrow becomes a crypto person. I mean, you got to figure out who you are. Mm-hmm. And then comes one particular model that every 5 years you look at reinventing yourself. You are in it for 5 years, you show your expertise, and then you go ahead. And the last one is what I call the big tree model, that they take one particular horizontal area and then you have branches all over.
Yeah.
So these are the 4 generic personas. For example, I have moved through all these, and I'm in the process of transitioning from a 5-year reinvention to the big tree model, where Outlier Marketing becomes my big tree, and everything and anything that I'm trying to do comes as branches from the tree. Still the core being me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting conceptual framework for it. Yeah. You mentioned before that you said the rules, we first have to learn the rules, then we have to master them, and then we can start breaking the rules. Why is that order important? Sometimes people also just randomly break the rules without even knowing them. So what make you see it from this perspective, from learning the rules, mastering the rules, and breaking the rules?
Let's assume, Julius, that you want to be a race car driver, mm-hmm. A drag race driver on the streets, using a stick shift, not an automatic in a car.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn accelerator, brake, clutch, first gear, second gear, third gear, look back, look front. And that process will take about a month for you to master, but you'll still be going at a rather slower pace. As you move on, until you know when to pull the handbrake and which gear to be in to make a wheelie turn. That's called breaking the rules and then going ahead and making up your own rules. And what's true for racing as an analogy is true for you and me, and our knowing who we are and demonstrating who we are. Yeah. So we've got to learn how the society works, because the way I'm talking to you, Julius, I have lived in Europe, so I can relate to you. But suddenly if I have to go and talk in Africa, I need to understand who they are, what the perception is, which country am I speaking, what is the background, and whether my examples would resonate. Yeah. Without that, if I say I'm just going to break all the rules, it may just go off in a whimper. Yeah. And the backlash is going to be significantly strong. Yeah. And that is what I mean. But when you know who you are for your audience, then you have the license to go break the rules. Yes. Without that, you're just adding more to the noise. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Another question, because you've been through this transition or this metamorphosis in finding and more explicitly articulating your unique self. So how has finding your unique style, how has it impacted your life and your business?
Ooh. So it took me a long while, Julius. I had a lot of help along the way. Yeah. But people who met me 10 years later said, what the heck happened? What happened? Because you used to come to meetings, you attended, said hello, and then vanished. Yeah. Now you make a conscious attempt to own the stage. So it took a while to find my purple patch, which is I love communication, I love talking, I love being on stage, I love networking. When you put it all together into a business, it makes all the more sense. Comes from the core of who you are. It did take me close to a decade to find that out. Yeah. And another decade to stamp who I am shamelessly. And I keep coming back to the word shame. Yes. Because where I come from, people don't do anything because of the fear of shame, because of the fear of judgment, because of the fear of what will other people think? Yeah. What will other people think? Yeah. But when I found myself, I said, shame is a great motivator. Let's turn the whole thing around. That, hey, I am shameless. I know who I am. I know what I want, and I have no shame in asking for that.
Yeah. This fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not, I guess it's even the bigger underlying fear is not being loved, right? Fear of not being good enough, or fear of not yet being excluded. While at the same time we want to be yourself, we also want to be accepted. So how did you work through these feelings of shame and this dynamic that happens between kind of being at the edge of what's accepted, trying to cross it, and then having to deal with the impact or the responses from the people around? I mean, you mentioned the influences and how they had your back, but how was that process internally for you?
It was confusing. I had good sounding boards who drew me out of it, because generally what happens with these repeated rejections is you get into a shell. You stop talking to people, you just say you are an introvert, and you get through until, for example, my wife helped, my best friend helped, my mentor helped. And one of the mentors is Seth Godin, even though I've just attended. I'm going to slightly take a segue into a role model. Because the big thing out here is, who is your role model? I say, I don't have one, I have many. Not one person is perfect. So I will take something from this particular person, I will take something from this particular person, and then make my own persona of a role model.
Yes, pick and choose.
Seth Godin and Jay Krishnan. Jay Krishnan is a mentor that I have here. They said, ship it. You've made something, you've come up with something, bounce it off the audience for whom you have created. If there has to be a rejection, let them reject it. You don't reject it yourself. Yeah. Right. So that helped. Having this group of positive people around definitely helps. And I'm going to quote something when from my book coach, Kriba Shankar, when I attended his book writing workshop, Julius, as a part of reinvention, as a part of the 5-year reinvention. Yeah. And what he said makes absolute sense to me, that, hey, you have decided you're going to write your book, you're going to come out, go ahead, announce it to your circle. Listen, look. If somebody says, great, this is the date you're going to get your book out, we are there to support you, bring them closer. But somebody laughs, hey, you all are going to write a book. What nonsense. Cut them out of your circle, your creative circle.
Yeah.
Because we need constructive criticism. We need people who are invested in our growth,
Yeah.
who will be there to knock us when we are not on the right path, but also hold us up, rather than all the jokers around who are just there for whatever reasons best known to them. And when we are in the process of finding ourselves, we need these honest sounding boards who are genuinely interested in our growth.
Yes. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because in this way, when we are at this edge, to keep going to this metaphor, when we're at this edge of breaking the rules or not, this delicate area, I imagine that with the support of these people who push you there, we can actually find out and articulate what's going on. And then what wants to come out within us and what we want to develop or what we want to explore, it finds indeed a sounding board, as you say, and it becomes supported, and it gives us more confidence to pursue that further. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And also in the sense of cutting off people that don't support us or who are critical from a negative place. I mean, criticism, I think, is very valuable, constructive criticism, but we have to be critical in a sense as to judge where it comes from. Sometimes it.
Right. I agree with you there, but I have a differentiation there, that you have naysayers and you have dementors. I'm fine with naysayers who negate you, who have a different point of view and are verbal enough to tell you.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine. But dementors suck the positivity from the place and everywhere around you. Dementor is a term I learned from Harry Potter. So beware of dementors when you're trying to find you, when you're trying to be you.
Yeah.
They have no place in any ecosystem.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they take the energy. That's absolutely true. So let me bring it back to how your life changed, because I'd like to hear more about it. How did your personal life change? How did your business change while you were finding your unique self? And actually, while you started to show more of your unique self, what happened?
Julius, the positive loop was phenomenal. Once I got to know, hey, this is what I am, this is what I am good at, this is what I love doing, which is speaking, presenting, organizing, conducting. I was given a stage by SOMAR. It's actually headquartered in Amsterdam, where you are. On one of the larger platforms, I was on stage speaking to 1,000 people. One of the inflection points in finding yourself that, hey, I belong to the stage belongs to me, and I have no shame in telling it. And I was given that stage and I hit it out of the park. And that led to the next talk, that led to the next talk, to the next talk. And before you know it, I had spoken in 27 countries.
Yeah.
So it's a positive loop that went, of course, I've had dubs. I went and spoke in Indonesia to an audience that did not connect with me because I had not done enough background research, that they do not show any facial expressions, that they may love the talk, but there's no feedback coming in. And so thankfully, I had another.
Yeah, I was going to say you were unfamiliar with the rules there.
I wasn't. Yeah. And I was there trying to monkey around my usual energetic self and no response. Right? Thankfully, I had another opportunity. But the transformation is a positive loop, Julius. And that's something that I want to communicate through you, through your 39 Ideas for Life, to all the people out there, that we would need to experiment to find out who we are. And we will need to continuously struggle to show people who we are.
Yes, and make mistakes and fall down and get up again and try something new. It's a continuous process.
My mustache twirling takes only 2.5 minutes now, but when I started, it took me 10 minutes.
You become an expert. Yeah, that's good. What recommendations, Pravin, would you have for people who want to find their unique styles and position themselves more explicitly? I mean, you've shared already a lot, but can you say some more on this?
Well, I can tell you what they would need to do. What I did not do is form a mastermind of people trying to find themselves, be a part of the mastermind for a longer duration. I did not know about a mastermind when I was in the process of finding myself, but I was lucky enough to find associations and mentors and friends who helped me along the way. But going ahead, I would request the people, because I'm a part of 3-4 masterminds, and they are shaping the new me, the me that is going to be there in the next few years. It is the mastermind that is shaping. So I would strongly recommend that.
Yeah, but then how is this mastermind different from this group of supportive people and these influencers who become your advocates and your ambassadors in a way? How is there a difference?
I'm working on a book called The 7 Stages of Brand Love, focused more on the individual, Julius. Now, the people around me who are already helping me are invested in me. They want me to grow. They want me to find out.
Yeah.
The mastermind comprises of a whole lot of people like me who are finding themselves, who have similar questions, but each person is different.
Yeah.
So when we come together, let's say, Julius, you and I are a part of a mastermind. All of us are working towards a particular objective. I am learning from each one of you. As you answer your question, I try to adapt that to me.
Yeah.
Because the process of finding me and being me is predominantly from within. And the more we open up and say, hey, help me, help will come. Yeah. But we need to get over the stigma of not asking for help.
Yes.
You get off that, you go ahead and ask, and help will come. So that's the clear difference.
Yeah. And indeed, like, I guess you could call it vulnerability, where we dare to show our true selves instead of, because once we do that, indeed, like you say, then we can start to connect with those people that we actually want to connect with and who want to connect with us because we're showing our real self. So I guess, yeah.
Absolutely. There's one gentleman called Andy Lopata from the UK. He's a professional speaker who's just come out with a book called Just Ask. He was a keynote speaker at the Indian Speaker Convention. And his book is all about show your vulnerability, show the real you. Yeah. There's no need to hide it across because this is the real world.
Yes.
How are you feeling? Fine is not an answer.
Yeah, and it's a waste of time because life is too short to keep hiding ourselves.
Oh yeah, you need to talk to Andy.
Yeah, I would love to actually. We will get to that maybe at the end. Yeah, because it sounds like a good topic. Also, just asking for help and reaching out.
Right. Oh, the other thing, today I'm talking from the office, but had we been discussing from the house, I have 778 books all through.
Yes, I've seen it on your videos.
Yes, the books have the answers.
Yes.
The books have the answers.
Yeah, good points. What are your thoughts then on personal branding? Should we actively brand ourselves as if we were a product?
Without a doubt, because we are. End of the day, you and I and everybody listening to this show is a marketer. We'll have to get that really in. Yeah. You could say, hey, I don't sell anything. You sell yourself every time to your spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, mother, everywhere we need something.
Yeah.
When you need something, you want to make that positive change happen, you are in the business of marketing.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. And when you are in the business of marketing, it is better if you have control over how you are perceived by others.
That's an interesting point. To have control over it and to shape their perceptions, basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. Now, there is a very layman terms example that I use to teach students, the difference between marketing, advertising, and branding. Now, if you are a marketer listening in, my apologies, but you have to talk in the language that is understandable by the people. So when I know who I am, to me, I am a marketer. When I communicate to you, Julius, that I'm an outlier marketer, I work on unconventional marketing, I love going against the grain, I'm advertising it to you through everything that I do.
Yeah.
When Kerry talks to you saying, I have an unconventional marketer in mind, Pravin, you have to talk to him, that is branding.
Yeah.
Right? And that is something we have to do consciously.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to put ourselves out there much more than we do. I think that we're hiding ourselves in general I mean, people are extremely, it's part of why I started this project of 39 Ideas for Life, is
Yes.
to learn about people and to learn what, I think people are fascinating and there's so much to discover, but sadly, a lot of it, of the interesting parts, we keep inside and we hide them and we don't allow the world to see it because of convention, because of the
Yes.
fear and the shame as we've talked about. Yeah. Let's talk about outlier marketing. Can you tell me what is the concept of how does it work? What is outlier marketing? How is it different from conventional marketing as I guess we're being taught in university? How does it work and what does it mean?
Traditional marketing is going by the book, playing by the book.
Playing by the rules.
Yes. Outlier marketing is the thought process which encourages you to break the rules and make and implement your own rules. Now, a lot of people ask me, how different is it from guerrilla marketing? It's all the same coin. To me, guerrilla marketing is more on the tactical part of it, while outlier focuses more on the thought process, the strategy, the conscious attempt to be consistently different. And it comes from that thought process, to think, act, and be different.
And how does you say think, act, and be different? I imagine the being and the acting and the being, it comes from the thinking. So how do we learn ourselves to think different?
By one, building a confidence that, hey, I am who I am. And I have no shame in telling people who I am, in letting people know what I want in very explicit terms. When that comes through, then quickly it moves into the acting and being part of it, which is where most of them falter. Because everybody has an idea. Where I come from, we say ideas are like armpits. Everybody has at least two, and generally they stink. But what do we do after the idea? How do we take it forward? So in my companies, I tell people, you've got an idea, great, but come with a plan on how you want to implement your idea, assuming that the permission is there, budgets are there. Come up with a plan of implementing the idea. 99% of the people run away because they want to be just giving ideas and claiming credit for it later. Now, I read it somewhere, I don't know who to attribute it to, is that there are stages to an idea. Julius.
Yes.
First is, it's a horrible idea, get out of here. And the next stage is, hey, it seems like a good idea, but it won't work for me. It's not for my company. And 1 year later, somebody implements that idea, makes a success out of it. Hey, I always knew it was a good idea.
Yeah, told you so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell the told you so guys, great idea. Whatever your idea is good, come up with a plan to implement it and let's see if it works or not.
Yeah.
And they run away. Right? So when you are talking about being yourself, you come up with the ideas, come up with implementable plans and test those ideas in a smaller circle. Yeah. Your close set of friends, your family is your testing circle, who will be absolutely forthright with their feedback. Julius, I've got 2 teenage daughters. All my speeches, whether it is professional or for the company, I present before them because the feedback that comes is unfiltered. They just say, Dad, you sucked in these parts. That joke did not work at all. Can you go ahead and redo? So it's the confidence that you get from a closer circle. And that is necessary for you to be a genuine you, not a fake you. Do you remember I spoke about role models? Oh, I want to be like Gary. I want to be like this. Hey, they have struggled hard to be where they are. You can't just somersault and be where they are without the hard work that comes with it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, figure out who you are. Don't try to fake your way through, especially when it is you and your personal brand that is concerned. Yes. You've got to be a genuine you.
Yeah. You mentioned building confidence and that you require confidence to really boldly be yourself. How does that process work of building confidence? What are your thoughts on this?
Agile, extremely small steps, smaller circuits, fine-tuning it, moving to the next. So how did I do it? I did it with my family and friends circle. And then I did it in the associations and the companies that I was in a part of. And then I did it from a stage in my state. Then I did it across the nation and across the countries. And every time the feedback loop was coming on. Yeah. Now, let me give you an example of the confidence loop by bringing in the folks who care for you. one of the first professional speeches that I had to give. I had a trial before, and it was for an alumni association, Julius. The talk I thought went well, and my mentor was there because he was an alumni of that institution. He said, Pravin, tomorrow morning, 11:30, I'm going to call you, be ready. Next morning, JK called me at 11:30, Julius, and for a 30-minute talk, I got a 45-minute feedback on areas of improvement and what I would need to do. And I said, thank you, JK, I've made all the notes. And when somebody is giving feedback, and that's a request for all our audience here, Julius, shut up and take note. Don't try to get defensive. So I told JK, listen, I've got the same talk coming up in 2 weeks for Lufthansa. This is where I'm going to be speaking, and I'm going to implement all the changes. So I was up there, the closing keynote speaker of this conference, and it was a 45-minute session. I was having a ball. The audience was having a ball. There was a lot of interaction there, Julius. 3/4 of the way in, because as a professional speaker, you see through the audience across, you maintain the eye contact. There at the end of the long hall, I saw one gentleman with his back to the wall, and he was JK, who had paid his way to come and listen to me and how I was doing my talk. So right after the talk, the crowd came to me. I rushed straight to JK. All he did was put his hand around my shoulder, patted me, and said, good job, and went off. Right? So if you're talking about building confidence, build the circle around you, but most importantly, add value and build trust. Now, these people are there as my confidence boosters because they know I'm there to add value consistently. That builds the trust. So you're talking about confidence. There are many such small stories that come through, Julius, that you and I currently are paying it forward to those who are listening in. That it comes in this small agile terms, that confidence boost comes through as energy. This energy is nothing but confidence. It's not a put on act, but it took me years to get this confidence out.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the process, because like you said, you cannot fake it. You have to go through the motions. You have to go through the failure. You have to go through the reject or the rejections. You have to go through all of it to have the confidence to be able to deal it and stand for yourself. Yeah, very much. This is another interesting, because I also, as you can see from the 39 Ideas for Life, I like to look at different things. I have a very broad interest in that sense. And I think you have that too. You have a very broad and a very vast interest, I would argue, because you've written books on marketing lessons from mythology and ancient wars. And the lessons there. It's not the typical place, I would say, and probably most people, to look for marketing lessons. Could you share some of the learnings and the remarkable insights that you've gained during this research of writing these books? I'd love to hear.
Right. Absolutely. Why did I start writing books? Because as I told in the persona, it's a 5-year reinvention. You've got to do something, you want to learn something more. So at the same time, a few years ago, I attended a storytelling longer workshop over 5 weeks, and I had my book coach, and I married the two, and that came out. I love reading, Julius. I love reading. Last year, I read 92 books. This year, I'm at 55. Not my own books, others' books that I read. And that brings through a whole lot of interest in what I call alternative learning. That learning is never straight. It is always at a tangent, and it's up to you to pick it up and work on. So one of the facts that I was working with my younger daughter, who's published 4 books, by the way, was, hey, can we look at a rapid writing technique and get a book out really quickly? She is a mythologist. She loves history. She's a reader just like me. And so we wrote that book, The Gatotkacha Game, Marketing Lessons from Mythology, in 2 days flat. Really? She brought in the mythology angle and I brought the marketing angle. We hashed it out, we wrote, we discussed, we wrote. But that Saturday and Sunday, we had the first draft ready. And 3 months from then, we got the book out, purely alternative learning. Of all my books, and she continuously makes it a point at family dinners and the meetups that is the bestseller. That is my #1 bestseller.
That's funny. And it's built in, it was written in a weekend. That's amazing.
It was written in a weekend for an audience that was new. After that, I wrote Marketing Lessons from the Art of War. I'm a big
Yes.
Sun Tzu fan. I've read most of his books.
Yeah.
But my biggest pet peeve was they're all literal translations. How do I attribute it to my business? How do I bring it in? How do I pick up what happened so many years ago, which is still valid today, and translate that as an alternative learning? So that's what I call Marketing Lessons from Sun Tzu, with the South Indian kings and kingdoms and the real time period when it happened, but mixing it with entrepreneurship for a startup, mid-size, and a growth company. So I am a huge believer in alternative learning. If you really like a person, Julius, you will say, wow, he's so multifaceted, he's so talented. If you don't like, the same society will say he's so fickle-minded, he's doing so many things. So I'm not bothered about society. By doing so many things, you end up finding the real you, expanding the real you. Yeah. So I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm an entrepreneur. I love drums. During pandemic, I learned the cajon. And along with my cajon master, I'm now producing, and we will be launching a meditation drumming album. I'm the producer. He's the one who did that. Why the hell not? For one of our clients, we are producing a book called Rejected. She approached us saying she's got 50 rejection letters for her proposals. And we said, we'll celebrate rejection. We'll print all 50 of them. Let's have fun.
That's a great perspective. It is spinning rejection actually into an accomplishment. I love it. But you've shared with me about the process and about how these books came about and what was the interest. But what I'm still very curious to learn is, what were some of these surprising insights that you gained by studying mythology with regard to the context of marketing and by looking at the work of Sun Tzu? And what did you learn? What was
so much has changed.
Yeah.
So much has changed, and nothing has changed.
Mm.
People are still the same. Desire is still the same. The need for personal branding and marketing is still the same. And the one who controls the narrative controls the overall flow. This is my lesson from mythology across cultures. How do we know he is as great as we have read? Because somebody has written he is that great. Somebody has expounded on the archery skills of Arjuna so much that we think about archery, we only think about Arjuna, where I come from. Or we think about Greece and Greek war, and Achilles comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Right? So these are powerful branding lessons, powerful folks. Well, they knew, but the people around made sure that the rest of the world knew, and history knows till now.
Yeah.
So those are some of the key learnings. And when you read them, you realize that end of the day, it's nothing but psychology and marketing and people management.
Yeah.
End of the day, that is the key part that I got out of all these books, that there has to be a suspension of belief. There has to be imagination for us to see, hey, what all could have happened. Now, very recently, we had a road trip and we went to a beautiful temple down south called Dharasuram. And there, at the bottom of the pillars, Julius, the guide was explaining beautifully. There was a face of a lion, the body of an elephant, the claws of a cat, a tail of a tiger, and it was a composite animal. And when one in our group asked, is that for real? She turned around and asked, have you ever seen a dinosaur? What makes you think this cannot be a precursor of dinosaur? So, absolute answer. Yeah. Because people thought about, they brought it through. And to me, that is a clear embodiment of what I call a role model, that I pick and choose the best from each of the people that I adore and form my virtual persona of who my role model should be. Bringing it right back. That could be from mythology, that could be a combination of somebody who lived or claimed to live a few thousand years to somebody whom I have seen, touched, feel, and heard.
Yeah.
To make me a better me, to keep challenging myself.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Also, I appreciate you saying that who controls the narrative controls the flow. This is a very important point, and it's also a very important argument for us to take the effort or make the effort and to actually work on the narrative that we are putting out there about ourselves into the world.
Yes.
Yes. What you said about the suspension of belief, that triggered me. Can you tell me more about that? How do you mean that exactly?
when you can imagine a world without inertia, without friction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is who I want to be. But we have so many self-limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
Julius, that we don't take a step. This is what I call, in comparison to the suspension of belief, speculative inertia.
Mm-hmm.
Speculative inertia is when we imagine all possible things that can go wrong with it and therefore don't do anything. I would say take us from here to suspension of belief. Hey, eliminate all the things that you feel are going to be impediments, are going to be speed breakers.
Mm-hmm.
If these speed breakers were not there, what all could you do?
Yeah.
Why don't you do? Go right ahead and do it. All the imaginary impediments will be washed away. Real impediments will come, but you'll have the confidence to jump over, crush through, run across.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I'm planning my next 5-year plan, there has to be a suspension of belief for some time for me to list down under the best case scenario all the things that I can do.
Yeah.
And when you write it down and you repeat it, call me spiritual, call me whatever, I have found it happens to me, and it's going to happen to every one of you.
Yeah, no,
The power of the subconscious mind. Yeah.
That's my experience also. And I appreciate you for saying this and for articulating this more clearly, because I also see the connection between the suspension of belief in relation to the narrative that we're creating. Because in a way, because of the suspension of belief, we become able to kind of lay a path out in front of us, which is not, in the current context when we're laying it out, it seems impossible, but by doing it and by having this suspension of belief, it becomes possible and it becomes the narrative of ourselves. So there's an interesting link there. Yeah, this is great.
We start believing in ourselves. We
Yes.
start believing in dreams again, in crazy visions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, the crazy visions, they're actually not crazy. It's the same like we talked about being at the edge. And once you cross the edge, in the end, everyone wants to be there where you've crossed the edge, and it's not crazy anymore. Yeah.
Julius, a 90-year-old William Shatner went into space for real after Star Trek.
Yeah.
It can't be crazier on the edge than that. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great example. Pravin, marketing implies, at least the traditional marketing implies, tailoring yourself to your desired audience. How does this relate to being and staying yourself?
I am me for my set of audience.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I write books, I post a whole lot, is for my right audience to find me.
Yeah.
So if they don't like my book, if they don't like my website, I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah.
That means you and I do not connect at a level. I'm absolutely fine. If you are as crazy as I am, we have that crazy trait, and you call me and we talk, we connect immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually,
so I am who I am for my target segment, Julius. Back to you. You were saying something.
Yeah. No. I fully agree, and I wanted to just say that when Carrie, she told me about you, I looked at your website, and instantly I loved it with the colors and the black, and then this twisted or the 90-degree angle writing. It's perfect. So I instantly resonated with it. So it must be a little bit crazy too, but I guess I am. Yeah.
Yeah, my web designer said, hey, if this is the case, not too many people will book you. I said, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I want the people who book me as a professional speaker to know that they are getting a person who will drag their audience to the edge and maybe beyond.
Yeah.
So if they are not ready for it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right? So answering your question, once you know who you are and who you are for, Julius, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
My books are written for a small audience. When somebody asks me, how many of your books are bestsellers? I said, every single one of them. I said, what nonsense? I said, yeah, because my metric is different from your metric.
Yeah.
I don't need my book to be #1 in the Wall Street Journal because I'm not writing for the folks out there.
Yeah.
I'm writing it for an audience that laps it up the minute it is launched. Wherever I speak, books continue to sell. People read the books and come back and book me for consulting, etc. So the audience that resonates is the audience to whom I belong, where I add value and build trust. Yeah. Everyone is not my customer. And therefore, if everyone does not understand who I am, it's absolutely fine.
Sure. But then how do you find that audience? if you found yourself, then how do you find this audience? By just putting yourself out there, or do you have other tips on that process?
One person at a time.
Ah.
One person at a time. And that person is the person in front of me at that time.
Yeah.
So when I am with you, Julius, face to face, I am with you. There's no mobile phone, there's no distraction, there is eye contact. I am in you, with you, as you are with me, and one person at a time. How did Kerry connect me to you? The first time I met Kerry was when I fell in love with her book in Singapore at a HR conference.
Yeah.
I wanted to buy the book. I turned around and there was Kerry. So I bought the book, went and took a picture with her, and subsequently kept interacting. And to the extent that I refer her to most of the places that she does, because we connect. I know what she is for, genuinely what she is for from within, because I have felt that warmth, and I'm happy to share that across.
Yeah.
Right. So one person at a time, and you'd be surprised how quickly an army is built up.
Yeah, and indeed, when we focus fully on that person that we're interacting with, everything we say and do becomes amplified. It makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And indeed, we can be of value, because if we think, like you said it before, we don't change. If we compare that ancient times and today, our desires don't change. I think ultimately we all just want to be seen. We all want to be loved, and giving someone that attention, I mean, it feeds those desires.
Absolutely. I'll give you one example. We end up aping the Western world or the Eastern world without any rhyme or reason, without knowing why things are. For example, you are currently wearing a trouser because that's the Western way of looking at it.
Well, you hope I'm wearing a trouser.
I hope.
Yeah.
But what I am wearing is
Lungi.
what is called a dhoti, because I'm wearing a dhoti which comes out like this. It's a piece of cloth that you wear around, even at work, because where I am is extremely humid, it's extremely hot, which means you need white to repel the light, you need it to be cool and airy everywhere. And that is embracing who I am at the moment. Now, if there is a force fit that I have to wear a tight fitting jean out here just to comply, it's not going to work. So you've got to be who you are, embrace who you are. And sometimes outlier marketing is going back and doing things like bell bottoms are coming back in fashion. Postcard marketing is getting back in fashion in these days, that all you need to do is look back things that have already been done and repeat, because for that, that's a novelty to the rest of the people out here. It's tactical, but it's necessary.
Yeah, we don't change that much while we think we change a lot. So I want to ask one last question, and I actually always end with this question, and it's what question about being your unique self and about showing yourself, putting yourself out there in the world. What didn't I ask, which I should have had, and or a question about outlier marketing. Let's take those two topics, because we're kind of talking about those two topics.
Sure. The one aspect we did not cover is, once you have found you and you are ready to be you, is the word consistency. You've got to be consistent with it across all channels, platforms, and modes of communication. Most of the time, the consistency is missing. It just comes in bursts and spurts. It's the spray and pray approach that is not going to work. So if you really want to be different, you want to be you unabashedly. So focus on consistency would be something that I would say. If it's a question on outlier marketing, it is just a request that there is a need for significant outlier marketers in the world today. Especially to cut through noise. And there is so much noise outside that you need to decide which part of that noisy world, which small part are you going to focus on, and focus your energies on cutting through that small market. Because the smaller your focused micro market is, the greater your success and my success is. And then you build a micro market by micro market, and before you know, the market is marketing you. So it has to be a micro market approach for outlier marketers.
Yeah, and it makes sense because if we focus very attentively on a small market, we give it all our energy and all our value and all our attention. By that, we do probably the best job we can, and that expands into new markets automatically, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. Pravin, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I really enjoyed it. I'm very happy that Carrie introduced us.
And I'm extremely happy and impressed with your 39 ideas for life. And I've started subscribing. And there's one thing that stays with me from one of your shows: only the realist survives. Meredith Powell said that in one of your shows, and that is so true. Only the realist survives.
Yeah.
And the realist today is an outlier marketer.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it and enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you.